like when the Bruins played Vancouver, and you're like, oh, okay, that's a pretty good team. We'll see what happens. And then like one game in, Bruins fans like, I despise these guys. Like it happens
I
every
hate
time you
them.
play. Every time you play a team in the playoffs, I'm sure people going to that Panthers game was like, Kachuk's a little bit of a power forward. He's a good player. Like he's going to be hard,
He's a bit of a
conversation.
rascal.
Yeah, and then after like 2 games, like I hate this man.
And welcome into the Bruins Beat on CLNS Media. My name is Evan Marinofsky, and today I am joined by the great Conor Ryan. Conor, what is up?
Evan, I'm doing well. How you doing?
I've been better. I'm battling a little sickness, a little congestion. It's nothing crazy, sniffling a bit. It's tough when, Conor, when I get sick, or I start to feel myself getting sick, it's tough because with my New England Hockey Journal job, going in and out of rinks all the time, they're not warm rinks.
No.
So when you're in there for quite a while, it sort of takes its toll on you if you, even when you're wearing a coat or I put a little beanie on my head on Saturday. But it's part of the deal. I'll take it. But yes, little sick, nothing crazy though. We're fighting through it. Emergency, Mucinex, all that fun stuff.
The usual routine. Good.
The usual routine, yes. And it's funny. It sounds wild saying this. I was at the Bruins game last night, but not in the press box. I was there as a spectator. I took my girlfriend. It was her. So she's from Long Island, but she's always wanted to go to a Bruins game. She didn't grow up a fan of the Rangers or the Islanders. Hockey wasn't big for her and her family, so she never really got into it. So she's a Bruins fan, and she was hooked last night.
Got her hooked. Good game.
Picked a good game. I was a little worried after the second period.
Yeah, that was not great. But
yeah, 1-0. I was like, oh, this is... Because I've always said, I'm like, because, she loves the Celtics too, and she's like, Celtics atmospheres are so fun. And I'm like, they are. But Bruins atmospheres are a little more superior, and they definitely can be. And so she said to me at one point during the second period, she's like, it's kind of quiet. And I said, yeah, well, you're seeing a 0-0 game at the moment. So on a Sunday night, this is what it is. But then Marchand got his goals, and all was forgiven. It was a great time. And I got to say, we can, from in the press box, we can hear the balcony sometimes. Mm-hmm. When you're in it, you hear so much more. And there's a guy a couple seats down from me, a row behind me. Just the whole game. Shoot! He was basically coaching the team from the balcony. So, I think it's time. Montgomery gone, that guy in. That's what I think.
But I bet that guy was absolutely blaring Mr. Brightside when that started playing in the third period, I have to imagine.
Oh, yeah. Well, he was an older gentleman, so I don't think
I don't
think that was in the cards.
Yeah.
It wasn't in the cards.
Can't take my eyes off you. He switched to that one. He's like, this is right in my Q zone. And then he started singing.
Yes. It was exactly what he was singing. But it was a good time. It's interesting going and not being in the press box and being in amongst the people. It's a different experience, but it was fun. I had a good time. And it's actually funny. Vera missed the first Marchand goal. She was looking at her phone trying to get her Instagram story right of the ice and all this. I mean,
of course.
She's like one of us. She's like one of us when it comes to that. And she missed it, and she was all pissed. And she's like, well, someone's got to score again. And I'm like, well, it could be the Blue Jackets. Bruins might not score again. It could easily be the Blue Jackets. And but it ended up, she went absolutely bananas on Marchand's second goal. So all around a good time, a very good time. And
better than going to the Patriots game. Smart move.
Yeah, you did the doubleheader. I mean, you covered it, so it's different. But that must have been an absolute slog to sit through.
It's not great, Evan. I don't know if you saw that. I think ticket prices were $5 to go to the Patriots game, and if I was a fan, I would want my money back. I mean, the fact that it rained the whole day, it was miserable. The product on the field is just not fun at all.
Horrible.
It's just the worst. I would rather go to the movie theaters next to Gillette Stadium and do that. Be more expensive, but at the end of the day, you can have a better time. I'd rather watch Oppenheimer 5 times in a row and chronicle the end of civilization with the atomic bomb than watch the Patriots for a game, even if the tickets were $5. Wasn't great. The commute back was not great.
No, that could not have been fun.
Yeah. But I made it back. I think it was about 9 minutes left in the first period, which again, not a whole lot happened. So I
You
didn't
missed
really miss all
nothing.
that. Yeah,
You didn't
exactly.
miss a damn thing.
So it all works out, Evan.
It does, and you're working hard, so that's what matters most. Yeah, Patriots, I have no need for anymore. Like it's just one of those things where like you gotta do it for work. So like but I imagine that if you did not have to, you would probably not be paying much attention to them at this point in the season. So
No, I wouldn't say so.
no. Anyways, the Bruins on the upswing. Last week it was a lot of talk of, hey, how are they going to overcome this adversity? Turns out they did pretty all right with it. They beat San Jose. They beat Toronto in a thriller. That was a hell of an entertaining game. I texted you this. I texted you and Ty this. I was driving home from Exeter because there was a tournament up there. So I was listening. It was like old time. I was driving through like back roads in New Hampshire, listening to the radio as it was like cutting in and out. And I'm like, come on, like trying to, I'm like, I wish I had dialed the twist to make the signal better. And it was old times, but incredibly entertaining game and entertaining overtime, obviously. And then. Bruins pull one out against Columbus on the weird Sunday night game. It's like we're at Anaheim. Sunday night games. It's I don't hate it. I don't hate that because I think the city needed it after the Patriots game.
It was a good palate. It was a good palate cleanser, that's for sure. Actual offense in the game. It's crazy.
Yeah, crazy. It was. I was kind of hoping there'd be more than 6 goals in the game, so then we could be like, oh look, it's bigger score than the Patriots. But unfortunately, we didn't get that. The big star obviously is Brad Marchand. Overtime winner against Toronto. Hat trick against Columbus. Does it all right after his grandmother unfortunately passes away. Montgomery said an interesting thing after last night's game. Someone asked him about what's Marchand's leadership been like during this stretch where they're, this last couple games where they're winning and he's scoring. And Montgomery kind of said, well, it's, we get that all the time, but what really impresses me is how he led us through the adversity and through the darker, I put in parentheses, darker times, which I think is impressive and I think speaks to his leadership. And now you're seeing him score some goals. I know there was some worry about him, putting the puck in the back, and that seems to be gone now. But again, I think it's been, I think it's encouraging to hear Montgomery talk about how good his leadership was, even through those losing times.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Montgomery said it best that he wasn't really concerned about the production in terms of the slump he's been in. Again, it wasn't great, but I don't know if you view that stretch as being like, oh, is Marchand, running on fumes? Is he injured? All that.
Is he washed? Is he washed?
He's had scoring lulls in the past, so I don't think the Bruins really going to be concerned about that. But I think even Marchand said it himself that like it's been a little bit of an adjustment in terms of being the guy. Like he's obviously been an elder statesman. He's learned from guys like Bergeron and Char, but it's different when you are now the guy with the C on your sweater. And he said, it took some time. He doesn't have Bergeron on the ice with him either, so there's the adjustment there. He's bounced around a little bit, but I think when you look at his leadership, he's always been a guy that leads by example, pulls guys into the fight, like pulled them to 2 points on Sunday. I mean, he took over that game. I mean, even like before that hat trick goal, he draws a penalty on Gaudreau. Just like we've seen it so many times before, but that was a takeover 7-minute stretch there from Marchand that he's done time and time again. So as much as maybe his title changes in terms of being the captain now, how he leads, how he, I think, bases his whole game on emotion and setting the tone, whether it's with a big hit or, a takeover shift or two. It's just encouraging to see that from a guy that, again, he's going to leave his own stamp on in terms of, the captaincy and how he leads. But he also mentioned that he's, learned from guys like Bergeron and Chara. Like that same, I think, identity, that same message hasn't really changed over the last 20 years, which is, again, you look at how consistently good the Bruins have been over the stretch. Some of it has to do with kind of carrying that torch and having that message go across. Like I even look at the Buffalo Sabres, who on paper have the young talent, have all this stuff. And I think I was listening to 98.5 and they were saying, like, how is it that team just can't get out of its own way? And it's like, well, I think something has to be said with just like the consistency, the veteran leadership, and having like that same tone, that same message carry across multiple generations. And I think you're seeing that with the Bruins and how I think Marchand is preaching the same thing that's been said in that room since 2006, really.
It's the culture. I mean, it goes back to that, and he's one of the guys. I mean, he wasn't. He got there, obviously 2010, 2011. So he wasn't there at the early start of it in 06, 07, and kind of 07, 08. But he's been a guy that's carried that torch, and I think he's sort of the bridge between. We talked about this when he was first named captain. It's why, like, I never understood the reasons to not make him captain. Like, I never quite got that. But again, he's sort of the bridge, right? From the Charas and the Bergerons and that era, Marchand to the McAvoys, the Pasternaks and all that. And I think, again, the fact that, he's able to take over the way he did in Sunday night's game, again, we know he has a great shot, like we know all those things, but just to kind of put it into practice and make smart plays. And I still say nobody's better in tight with the puck than Brad Marchand. Like, just the way that he's able to, just get around defenders and corral the puck, I think is so impressive. But it just, again, it goes back to, this team, I think's response to the adversity and the team's response to those kind of bad performances over the last couple weeks. Again, San Jose is San Jose. Right? I mean, like, I'm surprised I didn't hear. I don't think they did. I wasn't there. But I'm guessing that Celebrini was not in the building. I find that kind of funny. I was like, oh, maybe they should invite him. Just like, hey, come watch the team that you're probably going to have to, fix up. But again, you still get the win, right? You still pull it out. That Toronto game, I think, and all of us kind of had that circled as, all right, let's see what they've got here. And I think it just goes back to, and I know, are you worried at all about those final minutes?
Listen, it's not a really good winning formula, Evan, because I feel
No,
like
it's not.
those are things that are going to come back to bite you at the worst possible time. Every time I see one of those sequences where, I mean, it's happened multiple times, it brings me right back to Brendan Montour in Game 7. I'm like, if you don't correct this now, one of these is going to happen at the worst possible back-breaking moment, and it's going to really, really hurt. So, I mean, that's the one thing that, listen, they've had chances to come back, fight through that adversity. They come back and win in overtime against Toronto. Again, 3-on-3 overtime isn't happening in the playoffs. So if that's a series clinching scenario and you let up a goal, odds are you're gonna crumble over the next couple of minutes, or the momentum is not going to be on your side going into overtime when you should have been punching your ticket, getting the plane to wherever your next destination is. You really got to fix that stuff. It's not like it's been a one-off thing. It's happened multiple times this year. So without a doubt, that's something you have to correct and corral, because if not, it's going to bite you in April or May when you can't afford to have one of those sequences happen.
I think you mentioned something. I don't remember when that was, the Montour thing. Has that happened in the past? I don't know. I can't recall.
I mean, maybe I was just playing NHL a few weeks ago, so maybe that's what I was thinking of. It was something like that. I don't know if it was – that might have been off of my own personal recollection. But it could happen. He's a good defenseman. He finds shooting lanes. Like, you never know.
Fluke goals happen. I mean, who knows? Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a problem. I think you got to fix it. I will say I'll give them credit, though. They did respond. I mean, I know it's 3-on-3 overtime. I know it's not, what it is in the playoffs, but – I will give them credit for overcoming that. I want to touch on a couple things in a second. The Leafs. I want to touch on Montgomery with the kids, because that's sort of a big one right now, and the usage of the kids and playing the kids. Is this Jim Cassidy at it again? But first, Connor, a quick word from our sponsor.
Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action, NFL. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including you got spreads, you got your player props, you got over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
So you tweeted it out. I think it was you who tweeted after Saturday's game against the Leafs. It was you. I liked your Detective Crashmore tweet, by the way, on Sunday. I was, I got to say,
a lot of rated R replies to that too. It was
I was pissed. I saw that and I was like, why didn't I think of that? I didn't. I need to go back and rewatch I Think You Should Leave, because I'm like, oh my god. I saw Santa twice on the scoreboard, and not once did I say, "Oh my God, that's Detective Crashmore." I just didn't register. I got to go rewatch it again. So I think I'm disappointed in myself, but I'm happy that you noticed it. It just didn't register with me. But you tweeted after Saturday's game, a little more serious hockey tweet, that Bruins Maple Leafs would make a great playoff series, and it's crazy how that's been the case for like years now. They are due. They are due to play each other again. It's been a little while. And I would love to see it because I think that would be a fascinating matchup of high-flying offense against a great defense and goaltending team. The other part of it, I think the Bruins win that series. I do. I think the Bruins win that series. Did you see the lack of back check by John Tavares and Willie Nylander on Marchand's overtime goal? I mean, Marchand could have gloved that puck down, stood there for like another 5 seconds, and been like, boop. I mean, like,
a little pirouette, yeah. Wasn't great.
Yeah, no. So what would you think of his playoff series then? Let's look ahead.
I mean, it would be pure entertainment factor, right? I think you look at the way this league is going right now, or just the standings-wise, you have the potential for quite a few really entertaining series moving forward, even just maybe from the Bruins perspective, whether it's a rematch with the Panthers, which all those games have been really entertaining so far. The Maple Leafs, obviously. Bruins-Rangers, if that was like a conference final, because that Rangers team is damn good. That team is a lot of fun to watch. Kind of has a little bit of everything there. Carolina, we know them and what they provide, and there's a lot of history there. So a lot of really, really good matches. But yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with Boston, Toronto. Every time it happens, there's more, I think, media interest. There's more storylines beyond just what's going on the ice, which again, you can view that as a good thing or a bad thing, whether it's distracting or not, but adds, it's some of the best parts about these playoff series. I think, even neutral fans or Bruins fans who jump on late, as is the case, people jumping on for a playoff run, they're like, oh, okay, we don't know much about this other team. It's like when the Bruins played Vancouver, and you're like, oh, okay, that's a pretty good team. We'll see what happens. And then, like, one game in, Bruins fans like, I despise these guys. Like, it happens every time you play. Every time you play a team in the playoffs. I'm sure people going to that Panthers game was like, Kachuk's a little bit of a power forward. He's a good player. Like, he's going to be hard.
He's a bit of a rascal.
Yeah, and then after, like, 2 games, like, I hate this man. So I think there'd be a lot of fun if he played Toronto. A lot of stop power, a lot of firepower, a lot of games back and forth. I mean, even, like, that overtime, the back and forth in that, whether it's like McAvoy just absolutely blowing up Morgan Riley, you had the back and forth, a few like breakaway chances there. It's just pure entertainment, right? And I think hockey's due to have another one of those matchups. And again, we need to get more Ryan Reeves, holding scrums, talking about how he's going to beat up Brad Marchand, even though nothing happened in the other game. It's funny how this happens. I haven't heard what he said recently, but it is funny how that happens, isn't it, Evan?
I'm anxiously awaiting that. I'm waiting for that to get here. Yeah, I would love it. It's funny, the 2 wildcard teams right now are the Leafs and the Islanders. What a juxtaposition of
That's
series.
Not fun. That wouldn't be a fun series.
That's the one series where I'm like, please avoid that. I don't care. Like, if you have to lose a couple games to not face the Islanders, please. I can't take 7 games of the New York Islanders. I just cannot do it. Leafs, though, would love it. Would love it. I think it would be an awesome series. I think the NHL would want that. I think the Bruins want that. That's their rival. That's been their rival now for years. And I think that would be the most interesting, realistic matchup for sure. Islanders, though, I can do without. One other thing, I just want to go back to the adversity part real quick, because you mentioned the fighting and the Ryan Reeves, and obviously Reeves didn't do anything. But I'll give the Bruins credit. That game against the Sharks on Thursday, there's a little more oomph, a little more physicality, a little more fight. Trent Frederick dropped the gloves. And I think we said it last week, you want to see that. When they were losing, they weren't checking, but there was no guys standing up for each other. It was just kind of, not doing much. And again, not to sound 100 years old, but sometimes it sounds like I was in the balcony last night because I was. You want to see some fisticuffs. You want to see them stand up for each other a little bit. And I think the fact that you've seen that, you saw that against the San Jose Sharks of all teams, I think is good. I think there's a clear spark among this group. I don't hate it.
Without a doubt, yeah. I mean, I think you need that for the playoff run, and it's not just you have to drop the gloves every single game, but the accountability, the response, knowing that there's going to be a response if you take a run on the player. And I think just having that consistent physicality goes a long way in the playoffs. It's like every time you you deliver a really strong check on the forecheck, or you turn the puck over. Those add up when you're playing 20 plus games in the playoffs under that level of intensity. Like, it wears teams down, wears very good players down, and that's when mistakes happen. That's when you knock guys out of the lineup. And it's not, maybe that's a barbaric way of looking at it, but that's how hockey is played, right? Especially when you get to the playoffs. So I think it is encouraging to see that. Hopefully it's not just Trent Frederick that has to be like the go-to guy, but I think you saw, like, even on that play when Smith hit Marchand into the boards, you had like Heinen wrap him up, forward came over. Like, that's what you need to see. You don't need to see like guys just having a line brawl or doing that. But when there's accountability, a response, you don't want to have any of those situations where a guy gets wrecked or something really bad happens, and after the game, the biggest takeaway is, why was there no response?
Yes.
Like, that is the worst kind of post-game reaction to a game. Whether it's that, the guy standing up for McAvoy in that Florida game down there, you're at least seeing some of that, and hopefully that consistently continues moving forward.
That's the thing. I agree with you. And I think, again, you don't need guys going up to opposing players on faceoffs and be like, yo, you want to go? You just want to fight?
Yeah.
Like, it's more, you nailed it. It's more the Smith hits Marchand from behind, who's jumping in, who's dropping the gloves, who's grabbing him. So I think that's what you want to see. Speaking of, by the way, Luke Hughes in New Jersey. I feel like every night I'm watching a highlight of him just getting absolutely bundled.
Yeah.
Now, again, I didn't hear the audio of that play with Garnet Hathaway from Philly. I don't know, like, was there a whistle? Because he looked like Hughes stopped playing for a second. It just got crushed. So I'd be curious to see what... I know the tenor is New Jersey doesn't do anything when that happens, so I'm curious to see what happens with that. Quick break in the action to tell you about our delicious friends over at HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. A crazy schedule can make it easy to fall back into your dinner time recipe rut. But keep mealtime exciting with over 40 recipes to choose from every week. There's always something delicious to discover with HelloFresh. Turn to HelloFresh Market for yummy add-ons and enjoy the season's limited time fall flavors lineup. It's that time of year, right? Things get you in the mood, like apple cider cake with caramel sauce. All the ingredients come fresh, from the crushed tomatoes to the Italian chicken sausage mix to the Parmesan cheese. It's delicious, and I feel like a chef when I'm doing it. What's better than that? And this is a busy time of year for me with hockey starting up. I don't always have a ton of time, so this recipe makes it quick to enjoy something amazing. So join in on the fun. Go to HelloFresh.com/50Bruins and use code 50Bruins for 50% off plus free shipping. Again, go to HelloFresh.com/50Bruins and use code 50Bruins for 50% off plus free shipping. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. Now, back to the show. Speaking of younger players, Jim Montgomery got his fair share of criticism on Twitter over the weekend and last week. He sat Johnny Beecher, he healthy scratched Johnny Beecher against Toronto, which surprised a lot of people. He did not take he took Poitras out in the third, didn't play him much then against Toronto. And he was asked before Sunday's game about not using Poitras, and he said it's an opportunity to watch and grow and learn. It was a situation where we had a 3-2 lead with 8 minutes left, and we're going to go with the guys that have been tried and true before, and he's got to sit there and watch. If he gets the opportunity, and he will, he's got to do the right things without the puck to be able to be out there. I'm going to give a take here. I've been fine with it. I do. And I know that there's a lot of people that would disagree with me on this, and I get it. Because, again, the veterans were out there when the Leafs scored with 4 seconds left, and this has happened consistently this year. So I think that is the one pushback of, like, hey, maybe it is time to try the younger kids. But this is the same stuff we said with Lowry. They're they're a bridge team, but they're first in the Eastern Conference right now. They are the best team in the East. This has happened against Toronto. It happened against Dallas. When you're up against the other really good teams in the NHL, this is what happens. And it's again, the younger kids are still playing a lot, but if the Bruins were a middle of the pack team, I'm saying the same thing I said with Lowry. If they were a middle of the pack team, they could do that. They could put Poitras out in the final 5 minutes against the Maple Leafs when they're up 2-1 in Toronto. They could, throw Beecher in the lineup whenever, and not worry about having to reset him because there's nobody else to take his place. Like, you're a competitive team and you do have some depth. So I'm fine with it. I'm curious what you think about it.
Yeah, I think in Potter's case, I agree that, again, you can make the argument that this is a younger player that needs to learn on the fly. And yes, like he's getting those reps. Like, he is learning on the fly, but I'm going to let some people in on a little secret, Evan, that I think you probably are also aware of, is coaches, even ones that play younger players and give them a lot of leeway, like Jim Montgomery, they want to fucking win too. And if you're playing a team like the Toronto Maple Leafs, again, another common, again, a little insider information. A lot of times coaches would be like, it's just another regular season game. It's usually not when it's Toronto or anything like that. I remember, I think it was 2019, right after the Bruins lost in the Cup. They played the Blues really early on the next year. And I remember like the lead up to that, it was like, there's any extra motivation? And like Bruce Cassidy was like, no, it's just one of 82. And then like the game starts, and I think Chara like walloped. I think it was like either Barbashev or Sundqvist.
I think it was
like
Sundqvist.
2 fights, yeah. And it's like, yeah, you guys are full of shit. Like, we all know how this happens. So again, when it's a team like Toronto on the road, it's not like he's like been sheltering Poitras before or anything like that, or he's really cutting down his minutes. If there's a time and place to do it, it's probably on the road against Toronto with that firepower. If it's against the Sharks and he gives up a goal against or anything like that, it's not ideal, but you can you can roll with the punches when it's games like that. When it's Toronto, I can see the methodology there, especially when the very next game, Poitras is going to still be getting 14 minutes a night, playing in the NHL at 19, learning on the fly, getting those reps, whether it's on the power play or PK or what have you. Like, there's adequate room for him to grow. I think for Beecher, that one's a little bit tougher just because I looked at like the Bruins struggles at the faceoff dot, and Beecher's arguably been their best faceoff guy. Again, maybe you want to see a little bit more of a message there, but that's one where you look at just the game plan, who you're going up against, and he's been arguably one of their better defensive forwards. I'd put him in there. So again, agree to disagree there, but for Potter's case, I really don't have too much of an issue with it, considering what the opponent is.
Yeah, and the other thing with Beecher was like, Toronto's a fast team. And Beecher is arguably your fastest player, straight up. And I think that's an area where, but I do understand a younger player like that, if you don't like what you're seeing from him, resetting and throwing someone else in there. But again, I'm not hitting the panic button with Jim Montgomery yet of like, oh my God, he doesn't know how to handle younger players. Like the Poitras thing, I get that, that makes sense. And again, you want to get him to a point where you can do that. And I think at 19 years old, he doesn't need to be doing that, And I think that's a really important thing. And again, if they were a middle of the pack team, if they were, fighting for a wild card spot, it would make sense throwing guys like Poitras and keeping Lowry up here. That's another part of it. Is like they're competitive. They are the best team in the East right now. As of Monday, December 4th, they're the best team in the East right now. So you want to have an eye for the future, which they do have, but you also want to make sure that you are putting veterans in positions to try and succeed and to try and win. So, I'm fine with it. I know that a lot of people, it's funny though. So Scott McLaughlin tweeted out that quote, and I did see like some pretty rational reactions to it. Like, that kind of makes sense. I was against it, but now I get it, and I'm like, wow, this is crazy. Twitter's turned a new leaf.
I will say, I think Bruins fans have been pretty rational given like the various twists and turns we've had, whether it's like that or like Lowry, and I think people will realize like, we can say that he can go down to Providence. He's still a blue chip, very good prospect, needs more time down there. You've seen it with like, Dan Heinen is actually pretty solid, especially when he's making under $1 million. Like we're seeing Bruins fans being very rational. Give it a few months. Wait till we get to the playoffs again. Wait till we have the goalie rotation and all those things again. But so far, I think we're all in the same boat. It's good to see that. Maybe it's a holiday season. Maybe that's why everyone's in a good mood.
Maybe it is. Maybe it's maybe it's us. I feel like we're pretty rational with Bruins stuff. You and I and Ty, and we're pretty rational. I don't think that we're like, we don't go crazy on stuff. So I think people maybe are starting to listen to us. Maybe that's a little bit like 0.01% of those people on Twitter that are rational. Maybe it's because they listen to us. Maybe that's it. I don't know.
Makes sense.
Maybe it is. Maybe it is. But anyways, Connor, what can the people look forward to from you over at Boston.com and the Boston Globe?
Yeah, we're going to have you covered throughout the season, whether it's recaps, features, columns, breakdowns, all that good stuff. So you can read it, all of it over at boston.com. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can at Conor Ryan _93.
Go do all that. That's Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofsky. You Bruins Beat listeners, have a great rest of your week.